Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is August 11th, 2026. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a mass exodus incoming with several players set to leave this summer transfer market. I'm going to tell you about each one of those players. Also, as players leave, players arrive, I'm going to tell you about the Portuguese attacking sensation that Barcelona are closing in on his signing. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Bo. And as I reported a few moments ago, Barcelona have reached an agreement to transfer Ferran Torres to PSG. If you want all the details of that transfer and what it means, make sure to check out the video on the channel. I just went live a few moments ago. What an amazing news. But anyways, from good news, we move on to bad news. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona have officially confirmed the injury of Rooney Bardi. As I reported yesterday, Rooney Bardi suffered an injury during a preseason training. Of course, as always, medical tests are performed the following day. But despite that, initial reports were saying that the injury was a very serious one. And while, lo and behold, medical tests were conducted today, and those tests confirmed Barcelona's fears, which is Rooney Bardi has suffered a serious injury, and that is he has tore his ACL in his right knee. This is the same ACL that he tore, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. As you guys might recall, Rooney Bardi had that incredible performance against Manchester United in the Champions League. I think it was 3 seasons ago, if I remember correctly. That made him one of the hottest commodities in Europe, with many clubs set to sign him. But then he tore his ACL, so all those deals fell through. He ended up on the sideline for a whole year, and that's what allowed Barcelona to sign him so cheaply for 2.5 million euros. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him at Barcelona, so Barcelona were hoping to sell him this summer transfer market for 15 million euros, which is a pretty good deal given that we only spent 2.5 on him. But now it looks like Rooney Bardi has tore his ACL. He will undergo surgery to repair that ACL. And it's expected that he's going to be out for a very, very long time, which means any chances of Barcelona selling him this summer and making money off this transfer, well, they are gone. Now, on to the next bit of news. And the next bit of news is also bad news because it looks like the signing of Horge Salinas, it's not likely to happen. Now, of course, Horge Salinas is a 19-year-old Spanish left back who currently plays for Racing de Santander, who just got promoted to First Division. Barcelona reached a full agreement with the player back in June so he can join Barcelona. Barcelona then went to activate his 8 million euro release clause, and that's when Atletico Madrid intervened, convincing Racing de Santander that no, the release clause was not 8 million euros. It was actually 16 million euros now that Racing were in First Division. Now, of course, Barcelona argued that the season is not over until June 30th. So until June 30th, Racing were still a second division team, and as such, the release clause was 8 million euros. But Racing argued that, well, they had mathematically gotten promoted to First Division. So yes, the release clause was 16. There's been a stalemate ever since. Barcelona have tried to negotiate, but today we do have an update, and this is directly from Chema Aragon, which is the sporting director of Racing de Santander, who was asked about the situation of Horge Salinas, and this is what he had to say. We have already been offered 14 million, and we said no. If someone comes, brings us 16 million, and the player likes the club, he will leave. It could be that we are interested in a player, but one thing will have nothing to do with the other. We are not going to mix the two operations. This is, of course, there was talks about Barcelona maybe trading some players or loaning some players to Racing, plus some cash for Horge Salinas. So here, Aragon saying nope. And finally, Aragon said, today he is only sold for 60 million. Tomorrow, if we can, for 16.1. The closer we get to the end of the market, the more demanding we will be. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Chema Aragon making it very clear. There will be no negotiations. There will be no trades. You either pay his release clause worth 16 million or you can't have the player. By the way, at the end, he says that the more days pass, the more expensive he will get. Bro, his release clause is 16. You can demand 100 million. As long as someone pays the 16, they take him. Like, this guy's stupid. But anyways, anyways, the conclusion here is that the only way Barcelona will be able to sign Salinas is if they pay his full release clause. Of course, Salinas wants to go to Barca, but he's not going to force his way out because, Racing is his boyhood club. So, of course, he's not going to put them in any bad situation. So, unless Barcelona pay that release clause, it's not looking like this signing will happen. Now, one signing that looks like will be happening and Barcelona are currently working on closing in is no other than Dani Frey. Now, if you've never heard of Dani Frey, I haven't heard of Dani Frey prior to today. He's a 15-year-old Portuguese attacker. He can play in all three positions up front, so right wing, left wing, center forward. He currently plays for Racing FC Union of Luxembourg. That's where he has both Luxembourg and Portuguese nationalities. He's been training with the Juvenil A, or the under-19 team, for the past several days, where he impressed all Barcelona coaches, so much so that Barcelona have now decided to sign him. But this signing is not going to happen until September, which is when the player turns 16 years old. Now, Dani Frey was played in the Youth Champions League last season, so he had Youth Champions League experience. He also helped his current team win the Luxembourg Under-17 Cup, where he scored and assisted in the final. In other words, he can perform in big moments. And he's also an international with Portugal's Under-15. He previously played with Luxembourg. Now he shares a locker room with Cristiano Ronaldo's son, Cristiano Jr. I think that's his name, if I'm not mistaken. So he also has international experience. So Dani Frey should be joining Barcelona in September. There's a lot of great reports about him saying that he's a very, very promising Portuguese attacker. So it's always nice to see that we continue to add talent to our academy. Now, speaking of our academy players, it looks like we are headed for a mass exodus with several players set to leave during this summer transfer market, starting with Aaron Jakubishvili, the 20-year-old Hungarian goalkeeper who spent last season on loan with Andorra. He came back this summer and has been participating in the preseason with some pretty good performances. It seemed that he was going to be Hansi Flick's third goalkeeper behind Joan Garcia and Wojciech Szczesny, but it looks like the player is not in favor of being a third choice. So he has requested that he be loaned out for the upcoming season, and his agent is Pini Zahabi, so Pini could help accelerate the talks in these last few weeks of the transfer market, where it's expected that Jakubishvili will leave on loan, not a permanent transfer, because it looks like this move would be more for development rather than, getting rid of the player or making money or anything like that. Of course, Jakubishvili did renew his contract with Barcelona most recently till 2028. So it looks like Barcelona have faith in this young goalkeeper. Now, it's reported that Eder Aller and Iker Rodriguez will alternate between Barca Athletic and the first team. So Joan Garcia and Wojciech Szczesny will be number 1 and number 2 respectively. And Eder Aller and Iker Rodriguez will alternate with some matches. Iker Rodriguez will be the third goalkeeper, and other matches it will be Eder Aller. That way, both goalkeepers get minutes with Barca Athletic, but also get to play with the first team, or be third goalkeeper with the first team, because third goalkeepers usually don't play with the first team. Now, let's talk about the next 5 players who have been training separately from the first team, because they're all headed for an exit, which some of these names did surprise me. Of course, started with Jofre Torrens, Barcelona's left back. This was not a surprise, of course, because I did tell you a few days ago that Barcelona have reached an agreement with Ajax for the loan of the Barca left back, because, of course, we do have Balde and Barcelona are set to sign Cancelo. So with Jofre Torrens having a grown Barca Athletic and not having space on the first team, he is set to join Ajax. So he has been training separately. The second player that has also been training separately is Marc Casado. Now, of course, Marc Casado did not travel with the team to Italy, so he did not play in that triangular tournament against Udinese in Nottingham Forest, which, of course, signaled that Marc Casado was getting ready for an exit. We don't know where. There's a lot of speculation about him joining Saudi, but, of course, he also has interest from other clubs in the Premier League. So we'll see where Marc Casado leaves, but it's looking more and more likely with each passing day that Casado will be leaving this summer transfer market. The third player who has been training separately is Hector Ford, with Fulham from the Premier League being very interested in signing him. Of course, Hector Ford came back from loan this summer from Elche. And the question was, who was going to be Koundé's substitute? Was it going to be Hector Ford and Xavi Espar? I told you that it was looking like it was going to be Xavi Espar. Well, it looks like my prediction was correct because Hector Ford is now training separately, which means he too is headed for the doors. And then the fourth player is Tommy Marquez. Of course, I told you about this a few days ago with the arrival of with the imminent arrival of Rodri. Looks like Tommy Marquez will not have any space on the first team, so he will be leaving as well. Barcelona are looking to sell him with a buyback clause. A loan is also not being ruled out, with the most interesting club in him being Braga, in a Portuguese club. This is where we sold Pau Victor to. And then we do have the cousins, Toni and Guille Fernandez, where Barcelona are now considering loan or selling the players with buyback clauses. It's not confirmed which clubs it would be, but there's plenty of interest in both cousins, so I'm sure it would not be a problem. But the two cousins have also been training separately. And of course, to this, I ask you, what do you think about all these names leaving this summer? Of course, some names were surprising, but overall, it's not too surprising. You know, we are blessed with one of the greatest academies, if not the greatest academy in the world, that produces so much great talent that not only we have enough for our first team, but we even have a surplus where we need to end up getting rid of players. And as I said in the live, when I discussed Ferran Torres' exit, you know, I really truly believe that Barcelona, this is an area where Barcelona are not exploiting to their full potential, because La Masia produces so much talent that we should obviously pick the best talent for the first team, and the rest we should be selling for high amounts. And that could be a huge asset for the club that would generate a lot of money, because La Masia only costs 6 million euros a year. That's insane. That's for the entire academy, all the teams, hundreds of players. We only spend 6 million euro a year, and yet we produce so much talent. And this talent, as far as the talent that we don't use for the first team, we'll either end up loaning them until they're free agents and they leave for free, like Astralaga, for example, or we end up giving them away for nothing, like Jean Bergiri that we sold for, I think it was like 3 million or something like that, 4 million, right? And I think Barcelona should be exploiting the academy more, using the best talent for the first team, and the rest selling for, I'm not saying 80 million, obviously, but for good amounts that could generate a lot of money for the club. Anyways, that is all. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, be scars.